I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we have to head on over to Texas. Why is that? Because I want us to take a moment to listen to the wailing and gnashing of teeth of Jasmine Crockett. Yes, the wailing and gnashing of teeth is heavy down in Texas with Jasmine Crockett, because she's having a hard time wrapping her mind around the idea that come next election, she might not be sitting in her seat in the House of Representatives, right? Why is that? Because if the redistricting efforts in Texas go through and become finalized, which they will be eventually, she'll actually have to compete, right? She'll actually have to compete, and the whole ghetto sister girl honey child act just won't work when you have to address a wider and broader audience, right? That's outside of your particular demographic, but a mixed crowd, right? It just doesn't work. And we're going to get into all that shortly. But first, let's listen to some of the wailing and gnashing of teeth coming from Jasmine Crockett. Here's the first clip that I want to play here. Let's get into this one first.
I know that this legislature did ask us as members of Congress to confirm our addresses. I don't know how many of us actually still reside in the districts that we represent. I do not currently reside in my district based upon the plan that has been drawn, which is another red flag, in addition to courts consistently looking at how many people have been moved.
Oh, that makes me happy. Cry harder. Oh, cry harder. And when in doubt, blame it on racism, white supremacy. Her new word that she likes to use now is Anglo. She doesn't refer to white people as white or white Americans. Now her thing is Anglos, and the Anglos want to maintain power. So in order for the Anglos to maintain power, I guess they have to cheat and block out, phenomenal high IQ representatives like Jasmine Crockett. Let's get into her discussing the Anglos very quickly. This is a very short clip. Then we're going to get into another clip of her talking about Anglos. But let's look at this one right now.
Right. So thinking about it in that way, a reflective map would look like the fact that only 39% of this state is Anglo. So how in the heck do we have 60% of the seats that go to DC are going to be decided by Anglos? That's the math that doesn't work. We need to flip the numbers so that people of color, no matter who they...
Let's get into the next clip.
This legislature is consistently been found to be guilty of doing, which is to make sure that they can do an overemphasis of Anglo voices in this state. Only 40% of this state is Anglo, yet somehow we have more than 60% of our seats that are elected by Anglo majority districts. As I said in 2021, as I argued against these maps, the math ain't mathing.
Once again, as it pertains to Jasmine Crockett, her issue isn't that the math ain't mathing, and her issue isn't that Anglos are deciding, making all the decisions in Texas, despite the fact that 60% of the population is people of color. So that means that that's what they're choosing. They're choosing Anglo if they're indeed participating in the voting process. The issue is that, you can't compete in a competition of ideas. You can't. In a competition of ideas where you constantly fall on the 20% side of every 80-20 issue, you don't stand a chance in hell. Not because you're black, but because your ideas are in your politics are trash. They're in the dumpster. That's why you can't compete. You can only compete in a situation where essentially in your district that you're in now, you're heavily relying on race-based voting, right? Where I guess in your district is maybe majority black, if I'm not mistaken, right? And it's a Democrat area historically. But once again, if you bust that up and you put her in front of a wider audience, she doesn't stand a chance in hell. She doesn't stand a chance in hell. And I want to get into that shortly, why she doesn't stand a chance in hell also. But what I want to do very quickly is that I want to pivot over here, because this is very interesting, what the Democrats of Texas are doing right now. Look at this here. So currently, as you see here breaking, Texas Democrats head to Illinois to deny Republicans a quorum on redistricting. Essentially, what happened right now is that these Texas Democrats, like Jasmine Crockett, they fled over to Illinois, right? And they're in Illinois to basically hold the Texas vote hostage. Unless you have they have to have a certain number of delegates in the Texas legislature before they can cast any votes. So if enough of these Texas Democrats literally go to another state and stay there for X amount of time, then this can't be voted on. But I found it very interesting that they did go to Illinois, of all places, essentially to be represented by J.B. Pritzker, because that's what's happening here. And we're going to get into a quick J.B. Pritzker clip of him speaking on the behalf of Texas Democrats. I believe that they went here in order to assist and give a boost to J.B. Pritzker's profile, right? And to elevate him a bit, as this topic has somewhat become kind of a trending topic as far as what's going on in Texas. Why am I saying this concerning J.B. Pritzker? J.B. Pritzker has been campaigning all year for 2028 so far. But if you look at any type of polling concerning the 2028 Democrat primaries, J.B. Pritzker is consistently at the bottom of top 10. He's not even top 5. Ever.
He's done such a bad job. But you look at what Democrats have done. Look at Illinois. I don't know how it continues. You have this guy Pritzker. I don't know. He's too busy eating. He wants to eat all the time. Would you like a hamburger? How many do you want? 5? I'll have 5 burgers, please. You go to his office. Would you like a hamburger? Yeah. Okay, I'll have 5 burgers, please. Who the hell orders 5 burgers? But look.
And this is a guy that's been campaigning all year. Top 3 seems to consistently consist of Gavin Newsom. I don't know how Gavin Newsom is always top 3, but he is. But it'll go between Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, AOC. Sometimes Kamala Harris will be in the mix. You know, they're always polling and repolling, and there's so many different polls out there. So, you know, it fluctuates a lot. AOC, Gavin Newsom, you know, whatever. Even Zoran Mamdani, he might break the top 5, you know. But consistently what I've seen is J.B. Pritzker is never top 5. But that tells me also that I believe the Democrat Party currently as it stands, they have more faith in J.B. Pritzker being able to get them across the finish line more than Gavin Newsom, right? More than Gavin Newsom. Because if you compare both states, though you can say both states are a disaster, and, you know, because of Democrat liberal policy, so on and so forth, there is no state that's more of a disaster than California. When you're talking about high taxes, when you're talking about illegal immigration, if you're talking about crime and anything of that nature, cost of living, the idea that Gavin Newsom, who has run California into the ground and leads the way in everything that's negative, would then become the president of the United States, that just sounds completely ludicrous. The people would never go for that, ever. Gavin Newsom will get washed. So I do believe that this is an effort and an attempt to just, once again, kind of boost J.B. Pritzker's profile a bit. Because once again, and I'll get into this clip next, I'll pull it up now. You know, he's been campaigning all year, but it's been to no avail. No avail. Like, people just don't care and are not interested in J.B. Pritzker. So let's get into this clip next.
So Trump came up with a new scheme, rig the system, by ramming through a corrupt mid-decade redistricting plan that would steal 5 congressional seats, silencing millions of voices, especially Black and Latino voters. Let's be clear, this is not just rigging the system in Texas. It's about rigging the system against the rights of all Americans for years to come. Now, Texas Republicans submitted to the president's orders and took steps to advance Trump's Texas takeover. And while Texas Democrats have been trying to work across the aisle to deliver disaster relief after the devastating floods in central Texas, Republicans chose to use the tragedy as political cover to cheat. That brings us to today. Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place, and protect their constituents. This is a righteous act.
Okay, I can't listen to this anymore. Because once again, like I stay with these guys all the time, they're always projecting. They're always projecting. So this is some sort of a crime. It's racism. It's white supremacy. Blah 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 blah. The typical talking points, right? Gerrymandering. Oh my God, look at them cheating. But let's talk about gerrymandering for a minute. All right, in the state of Illinois. Let's pull this back up on the screen and look at this X post here from Eric Schmidt. I believe Senator Schmidt, right? He said, to protest partisan gerrymandering, Texas Democrats are fleeing to Illinois. You can't make this up. I look at how ridiculous this map is in Illinois. Okay. First off, let me explain something to you. I believe I don't have to think about it. I have it right here in front of me. And what am I doing? Because I looked this stuff up, right? So look at this here. In the 2020 election, 40% of Illinois voted for Trump, right? In the 2024 election, it went up to 43%. So you'll sit here and you'll see the state of Illinois is trending more and more closer and closer to, the Republican side of things. And you look at this map right here and you see it's all red. Okay. But as they trend more and more towards the Republican side of things, you see they never increase in their number of delegates that represent them in the House of Representatives. And, Illinois stays held hostage by Democrats. Look at this. Out of 17 seats in the House of Representatives, that's how many seats that Democrats hold in the House of Representatives. Out of 17 seats, Republicans only hold 3. Only 3. So 43% of Illinois voted for Trump, but they're only able to capture 3 seats out of 17, which is only 17%. 70%. 40% voted for Trump, but they only have 17% representation in the House of Representatives as it pertains to delegates in Illinois. Only 3. Okay, so why is that? Why do they only hold 3 seats despite, such a large portion of the population who voted for Trump? It's because of gerrymandering, the very thing that they're saying that they're fighting against. Look at how absurd this map is, right? In Illinois. There's essentially, look at how big these districts are. District 12 is about a quarter of the state. A quarter of the state here, okay? The southern half of Illinois. This is crazy how large this is. And then when you get to District 15, which is the next Republican district, look at how ginormous this is. Let me make it full screen. I don't think this is really doing it justice. You put this here, and I'll even take the banner down. Let me remove this out the way. This is completely absurd. This is absurd. Look at District 15. District 15 is damn near half the state. But look at how they play games. You come here up top, going a little northern of Illinois. It takes up all of this western portion. And then you see it cuts through 2 blue districts just to take up the midsection of Illinois going down south. How does this make any sense? And then look at District 16. Look at District 16 here. Look at how they bust this up and have it taking up all this space here. So you only give this has been strategically designed to block out conservative representation. You have an entire, almost half the population of Illinois, almost half of the population is conservative, Republican, but yet they could only get in 3 delegates out of the 17 because of how bogus this map is and how completely ridiculous it is. Look at this here, District 13, that's a blue district. I don't want to belabor the point, but just look at how crazy this is. It starts out looking somewhat normal, just kind of this block here, and then look at how all of a sudden, what is this? What is this line of blue that's just cutting through District 15? This doesn't even make sense. This is absurd. And then by the time you get into the quote Chicagoland area, Cook County and whatnot, look at here. Look at in Cook County, right? Chicagoland area, and the surrounding counties, how they break up Cook County into 1 trillion districts. Let me zoom this in one more time so you can see it better. Look at how much they break that up. They break them up into 1,000 different districts to make sure that Democrats are overrepresented in the House of Representatives. But when it comes to those who are Republican, you only get 3 ginormous districts that seem to make up, I'd say, roughly about 80% of the state. That is completely absurd. If that's not cheating, I don't know what is. But then you have J.B. Pritzker, crying racism, white supremacy, right? But meanwhile, this looks like cheating, if you ask me. I think that there should be a few more districts across the state to which, you don't only have 3 ridiculously large districts representing conservatives, despite the fact that 43% of the population, almost half, are in favor of conservative politicians. There is no representation there. So anyways, let's carry on, right? I want to move on from this point because I don't want to move on from the point, actually. I want to highlight this point, right, by playing this clip from Stephen Hilton. Stephen Hilton, if I remember correctly, is a Republican running for governor in California. And what we're seeing here, what we discussed here concerning the state of Illinois with gerrymandering, is what has happened here in California. And Gavin Newsom, in response to Greg Abbott, is looking to gerrymander California even more so than it already is. And Stephen Hilton is going to explain that right now. So let's get into that next.
It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. My friend Tom McClintock, who endorsed me for governor, is exactly right there. But here's what's going on. Everyone across the country needs to understand this. Gavin Newsom is planning to steal 5 Republican House seats next year by holding a special election this year to overturn the California Constitution and illegally grab power and make this state even more gerrymandered in Democrats' favor. Right now, Republicans have 40% of the vote in California, only 17% of the House seats.
Did you hear that? I'm gonna let him continue, but it's the same situation that like what we saw in Illinois. It's the same situation here. In California, Republicans hold 40% of the vote. 40% of the vote of every presidential election. 40% the state holds. But when it comes to their representation in the House of Representatives, I believe it's out of 52 seats. What is that? They hold about 9, if I remember correctly. Out of 52 seats, 52 districts, Republicans hold 9. That's 17%, despite the fact that 40% of the Californian population leans conservative, leans Republicans. What does that mean? This is gerrymandering. Gavin Newsom is not looking to redistrict the map to make things more equal and equity and all the stuff they love to talk about. They're not looking to do that. He's looking to gerrymander to make it even more of a Democrat stronghold than it already is. And he wants to amend the Constitution. Oh, they love the hypocrisy is beautiful. They love talking about something being unconstitutional. Everything that Trump does is unconstitutional. It's a constitutional crisis. Meanwhile, they want to make all type of amendments and changes to the California Constitution. But anyways, we'll let Stephen carry on. But the hypocrisy is unbelievable.
In Democrats' favor. Right now, Republicans have 40% of the vote in California, only 17% of the House seats. Gavin Newsom wants another 5. That will give us, for 40% of the vote, only 7% of the House seats in California, because Gavin Newsom wants to show that he is the guy fighting President Trump, winning the House majority for Democrats so they can impeach President Trump. I'm not going to let that happen. So what I will be announcing next week is a plan to stop Gavin Newsom stealing these seats and being able to impeach President Trump by filing legal actions on all the different arguments that we have. And you'll see that from me very clearly next week. We cannot allow Gavin Newsom to get away with it. And by the way, when I'm governor, I will restore the integrity of our system in California so we have fair representation. That would give us an additional 12 Republican House seats in California. That is what fair representation would look like.
The great Steve Hilton joining us today. I very much appreciate your passion, and clearly you want what's best for the state, and that would seem to be a change at the top. Of course, we'll let the voters all decide that. Steve, thank you so much.
So stop letting Democrats talk about gerrymandering, okay? There's nothing equal about the state of Illinois holding, 43% of the votes that go to conservatives, but are only able to capture 17% of the seats within the House of Representatives. That's completely ridiculous, right? Which is the same situation as we just saw here in California. 43% of the vote goes to conservatives, but they're only able to capture 17% of the delegates within California because of nonsense gerrymandering that goes on here in this state. I'm not interested in hearing any of that stuff. And also, too, they know that when it comes to gerrymandering and conversations around that, it doesn't hold much weight because the gerrymandering is so heavy in blue states, as we saw in the state of Illinois, which only has 3 large districts that represent the conservatives. It doesn't hold weight. So that's why they always have to retreat to Old Faithful, and just say that something is racist when it's not racist. It's not, right? Now, as we close out, speaking of racism, I want to close this out by coming back to Jasmine Crockett, because once again, as it pertains to her argument for why this is wrong, that's all she can say is racism. When we all know in reality, it's really that you just can't compete. You can't compete. Let's take another listen to Jasmine Crockett's wailing and gnashing of teeth concerning the situation here as we close this thing out. Let me pull this video up for you very quickly right now.
I'm fully anticipating that we are going to have a problem because I've been receiving phone calls that people don't feel safe coming here. And it's not the immigrants. It's this government that is making them feel unsafe. But let me also do this, because they love to cherry pick. They can find, any one person that has been killed. And if they've been killed by an immigrant, then God darn it, every single immigrant is going out and they are killers. And that is the problem. But
you do that with police officers all the time. Once again, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. They're always projecting when they speak.
They're killers, and that is the problem. But they don't want to talk about white supremacy. I don't know how many hearings we gonna have about.
I don't know how many hearings is we gonna have. You see, that's the problem. I don't know how many hearings is we gonna have. And that right there is your issue. That right there is your issue. Trash representation. You can't articulate yourself to save your life, and your policies are garbage. How many hearings is we gonna have? I'll leave you with that. It's enough. We don't have to listen to her speak anymore. Man, good riddance. Good riddance. Good riddance. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. How many minutes is we gonna speak? I'm done speaking now. We're gonna get out of here. So thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And also, please don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon. How many more videos is we gonna have?